In the quiet corners of Dragon Ball's vast history, there exists a chapter that unfolds between familiar battles and forgotten wars. Dragon Ball Daima emerged not as a continuation, but as an intervention, a story threaded carefully into the fabric of what had already been told. Before you drift into sleep, you're welcome to subscribe for more calm Dragon Ball stories. And if you feel like it, tell me where you're listening from tonight. It's a tale that begins 1 year after Majin Buu's destruction, a time when Earth had settled into uneasy peace, unaware that somewhere in dimensions unseen, plans were already being drawn. And the world Goku knew was about to become impossibly small in ways he never could have imagined. The story opens not on Earth but in shadows. The demon realm had existed alongside the mortal universe for eons, a mirror world few ever glimpsed. Within this realm, power structures older than the Kais themselves shifted quietly. Two figures stood before a magical mirror, observing events that had recently shaken the cosmos. One was small, ambitious, frustrated. The other carried the weight of royal blood, but wore it with quiet resentment. Their names would soon become central to everything that followed. Goma was the shorter of the two, a demon whose ambitions outweighed his stature. He stood beside Degesu, a figure whose lineage connected him directly to the Supreme Kai. Though this connection brought him no pride, together they watched through the mirror as Majin Buu's chaotic rampage unfolded across Earth's surface. They saw cities fall. They saw warriors transform. They witnessed power beyond anything the demon realm had cultivated in millennia. What disturbed Goma most was not the destruction itself, but the ease with which mortal beings wielded such strength. He had grown accustomed to the natural order of things, a hierarchy where demons sat comfortably above the mortal plane. The mirror shattered that comfort. As he watched Goku and Vegeta exchange blows that could crack planets, Goma felt something unfamiliar settle into his thoughts. It was not quite fear. It was more precise than that. It was the recognition that his world's dominance was an illusion, sustained only by distance. Degesu, meanwhile, focused on different details. When the mirror revealed Shin, the current Supreme Kai, Degesu's expression darkened. The two were brothers, separated by duty and choice. Shin had ascended to his role through circumstance and tragedy, becoming one of the universe's guardians. Degesu had remained in the demon realm, watching from afar, nursing resentments that had calcified over centuries. Seeing his brother aid mortals, protect them, fight alongside them, it confirmed everything Degesu believed about the Supreme Kai's misplaced priorities. The mirror continued its chronicle. Goma and Degesu observed Majin Buu's resurrection, a moment that should have filled them with dread. Instead, they found themselves calculating. Buu was unpredictable, yes, but also a force that operated outside alliances. When the creature turned on Dabura, killing the former Demon King without hesitation, Goma saw not tragedy but opportunity. Dabura's death created a vacuum. Someone would need to fill it. As the Buu saga unfolded before them, the two demons noted every detail. They watched Vegeta sacrifice himself. They saw the fusion of Goku and Vegeta into Vegeto. They witnessed Gohan's power awaken and then fade. Each transformation, each technique, each strategic decision was catalogued silently. But what struck them most profoundly was the summoning of Shenron. The Earth's eternal dragon appeared smaller than they expected, and the Dragon Balls themselves numbered only 7, a stark contrast to the demon realm's own set. The realization came slowly. These Dragon Balls granted 3 wishes. They could be gathered, they could be controlled, and most importantly, they existed in a realm where the Guardians were distracted, exhausted from their battle against Buu. Goma began to form the outlines of a plan. It was audacious, perhaps foolish, but it carried a certain elegant simplicity. If these mortals were too powerful to fight, then remove the power. Make them children again. Strip away the years of training, the accumulated strength, the muscle memory that made them unstoppable. Degesu listened to Goma's proposal with growing interest. The first wish would transform Earth's defenders into children, rendering them physically weaker, less experienced, vulnerable. The second wish would seek out the evil third eye, a legendary artifact lost during the reign of King Abura. The third eye was said to grant its wielder absolute power, an amplification of magic and strength beyond natural limits. With it, Goma could ensure his rule would never be challenged, not by mortals, not by rival demons, not by anyone. What neither Goma nor Degesu realized was that their conversation had not gone unheard. In the shadows of the Demon King's palace, another presence lingered. Someone else now knew their plans, someone with motives and allegiances yet to be revealed. This unknown observer would become a thread in the larger tapestry, a reminder that even in the demon realm, secrets rarely stayed buried for long. Goma wasted little time setting his plan into motion. He sought out Neva, an elderly Namekian whose knowledge of the Dragon Balls was unmatched. Neva had lived in the demon realm for centuries, one of the few Namekians to exist outside the mortal universe. His expertise was essential. Without him, navigating the rules and limitations of Shenron would be impossible. Neva agreed to assist, though his motivations remained unclear. Perhaps he saw value in Goma's ambition. Perhaps he simply wanted to witness what would happen. The journey from the demon realm to Earth required passage through dimensional barriers. Goma, Degesu, and Neva boarded a demon realm plane, a vessel designed to navigate between worlds. They arrived at a creature called Warp, a living gateway that required specific authorization to activate. Goma provided the correct credentials, and Warp opened the path to a relay point, a space between dimensions where travel became possible. At the relay point, they encountered a smaller warp, one calibrated specifically for journeys into Universe 7. The process was seamless. Within moments, they emerged in Earth's atmosphere, undetected by any of the planet's defenders. Their timing was deliberate. They had chosen to arrive during a moment of celebration, a time when Goku and the others would be distracted. Their guards lowered. On Earth, the mood was light. Capsule Corporation hosted a birthday party for Trunks, who had just turned 9 years old. The gathering brought together warriors who had recently faced annihilation. Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Gohan, Krillin, and the others mingled, enjoying food and conversation. The weight of recent battles had lifted, replaced by a fragile sense of normalcy. Trunks boasted about his age to Krillin, who teased him about his height. Goku joined in, explaining that Saiyans experienced growth spurts later in life, around 15 or 16 years old. During the celebration, Goku noticed Shin and Kibito standing together, no longer fused. He expressed surprise, having believed the Potara fusion to be permanent. Shin explained that their diffusion had occurred inside Majin Buu's body, where a unique gas nullified the earring's effects. They had convinced Buu to absorb and release them, facilitating the separation. Goku accepted the explanation, though he filed the information away, always curious about the mechanics of fusion. Shin inquired about Gohan's whereabouts. Goku admitted that his eldest son had been distant lately, focusing on his studies during this period of peace. Gohan had always balanced his warrior nature with scholarly pursuits, and now that Earth was safe, he had chosen academia. Goku respected the decision, even if he sometimes missed training with Gohan. After eating, Goku invited Vegeta to spar. The two Saiyans took to the skies above Capsule Corporation, engaging in a friendly but intense exchange. They traded blows, neither holding back, their movements creating shockwaves that rippled through the air. Vegeta unleashed his Gallic gun, while Goku countered with a Kamehameha. The two energy blasts collided, Vegeta's beam struggling against Goku's before being overtaken. Goku followed up with a quick strike that caught Vegeta off guard. On the lookout, Mr. Popo and Dende chose not to attend the celebration. They remained vigilant, as was their duty. It was a decision that would prove significant. When the Demon Realm spacecraft descended onto the lookout's platform, only they were there to witness it. Goma, Degesu, and Neva emerged from the vessel, their presence immediately unsettling. Neva was the first to speak. He addressed Dende directly, expressing astonishment at seeing another Namekian alive after so many centuries. Dende, equally surprised, questioned who these strangers were and what they wanted. Goma introduced himself and his companions as visitors from the demon realm. He informed Dende that Namekians originally came from the demon realm, that their pointy ears were a marker of demonic ancestry. Mr. Popo, too, shared this trait, a connection neither had fully understood until now. Goma's tone shifted from informative to demanding. He ordered Dende to surrender the Dragon Balls immediately. Dende refused. The Earth's Dragon Balls were under his protection, and he would not simply hand them over to strangers, regardless of their claims about Namekian heritage. Goma, anticipating resistance, signaled to Neva. The elderly Namekian stepped forward, revealing his unique abilities. Neva was not merely knowledgeable about Dragon Balls, he had created them. Specifically, he had crafted the Dragon Balls of the demon realm and the fearsome Tamagami that guarded them. His power over these artifacts was absolute. With a gesture, Neva summoned all 7 of Earth's Dragon Balls to the lookout. They materialized from various locations across the planet, bypassing Dende's protections entirely. The Dragon Balls, which had turned to stone after their last use, reverted to their active state in Neva's presence. Dende attempted to intervene, but Dejesu casually swatted him aside. The young Namekian guardian was no match for a demon of Dejesu's caliber. Helpless, Dende watched as Neva spoke the summoning words in the Namekian language. The sky above the lookout darkened. Lightning crackled. Shenron, the eternal dragon of Earth, emerged in all his serpentine majesty, his eyes glowing red, his voice echoing across the planet. Below, at Capsule Corporation, the sudden darkness caught everyone's attention. Goku and Vegeta paused their sparring. They looked up, confused. Shenron's appearance meant someone had gathered the Dragon Balls, but who and why now? Shin, standing among the party guests, sensed something deeply wrong. He recognized the energy signature. It was familiar in the worst possible way. On the lookout, Goma addressed Shenron directly. He made his first wish. Transform all those who fought against Majin Buu and their allies into children? Any existing children should be turned into infants or toddlers. The wish was specific, calculated to maximize disruption while avoiding outright harm. Shenron confirmed he could grant the wish. His eyes flared brighter. The transformation began immediately. At Capsule Corporation, the party-goers felt it first as a tingling sensation, then as something more profound. Their bodies began to shrink, muscles reduced, height diminished. Clothing became oversized. Goku and Vegeta, mid-flight, suddenly found themselves struggling to maintain altitude as their adult bodies regressed. Within seconds, they were children again, their fighting gis hanging loosely on frames that had lost decades of growth. Krillin, already short, became shorter still. Piccolo, the towering Namekian, found himself at a fraction of his usual height. Gohan, wherever he was studying, underwent the same transformation. Trunks, who had just celebrated turning 9, became a toddler. Goten, even younger, regressed further. Across Earth, anyone who had participated in the fight against Majin Buu or supported the Z fighters was affected. Goma observed the chaos through a magical scrying device. Satisfied with the results of his first wish, he prepared to make his second. He commanded Shenron to locate and deliver the evil third eye. But here, Shenron hesitated. The dragon explained that the evil third eye was beyond his power to retrieve. The artifact existed within the demon realm, outside his jurisdiction. He could not fulfill that particular wish. Disappointed but not deterred, Goma quickly revised his request. If Shenron could not bring the third eye to him, then grant him the knowledge of its location. Shenron agreed. The dragon imparted the information directly into Goma's mind, revealing that the evil third eye rested within the demon realm itself, guarded and hidden, but now findable. With both wishes made, though one modified, Goma had no further use for Shenron. The dragon vanished, the sky cleared, and the Dragon Balls scattered once more, turning to stone. At Capsule Corporation, confusion reigned. The partygoers, now children, struggled to understand what had happened. Goku, his adult mind trapped in an 8-year-old body, tried to assess the situation. Vegeta, similarly transformed, was furious. Bulma, now a child herself, attempted to use her still sharp intellect to piece together the cause. Piccolo, despite his reduced size, remained focused and analytical. Shin arrived at the lookout shortly after the wish was granted. He confronted Goma and Degesu directly. Seeing his brother standing alongside this upstart demon king filled Shin with both anger and sadness. Degesu met his gaze with cold indifference. Words were exchanged, accusations made, but ultimately Goma and his companions departed. They returned to the demon realm, leaving Earth's defenders to deal with the consequences. The immediate question facing Goku and the others was how to reverse the transformation. The Dragon Balls of Earth were now inert, scattered and unusable for months. Even if they could gather them again, would Shenron be able to undo a wish he had already granted? Shin provided a potential solution. The demon realm had its own set of Dragon Balls, larger and more powerful than Earth's. If they could travel there and gather those Dragon Balls, they might be able to reverse Goma's wish. But travel to the demon realm was not simple. The dimensional barriers between worlds were formidable. Normal spacecraft could not make the journey. Shin explained that special vessels were required, ones calibrated to navigate the unique physics of interdimensional space. Bulma, even as a child, immediately set to work designing such a craft. Her intellect remained undiminished, and her determination to fix this problem drove her forward. While Bulma worked on the ship, Goku and the others discussed strategy. Piccolo pointed out that even if they reached the demon realm, gathering the Dragon Balls there would not be straightforward. According to Shin, the demon realm's Dragon Balls were guarded by creatures called Tamagami, warriors of immense power created specifically to protect the sacred orbs. Defeating even one Tamagami would be a significant challenge, especially in their current weakened states. Vegeta predictably refused to accept his reduced condition. He insisted that he was still strong enough to fight, that his Saiyan pride and experience would compensate for his smaller frame. Goku, more pragmatic, acknowledged that they would need to be smart about this. Brute force alone might not be enough. They would need allies, information, and careful planning. Days passed as preparations continued. Bulma completed the dimensional spacecraft, a compact vessel designed to carry a small crew through the barriers between realms. Goku volunteered immediately for the mission. Vegeta demanded to be included. Piccolo offered his tactical expertise. Shin and Kibito, as beings familiar with cosmic geography, would serve as guides. The team was assembled, each member aware of the risks but determined to see this through. Before departure, Goku spent time training in his child body. He needed to understand his limitations, to feel how his techniques worked with less muscle mass and reach. He discovered that while his raw power had diminished, his skill and knowledge remained intact. A Kamehameha fired by child Goku was still formidable, just smaller in scale. His speed, if anything, had increased. His lighter frame allowed for quicker movements, more agile dodges. Vegeta took a different approach to adaptation. He trained with relentless intensity, pushing his child body to its limits. He refused to accept any weakness, any excuse. If his adult strength was gone, he would rebuild it. If his pride was challenged, he would prove it unshakable. Bulma watched him train and saw the same stubbornness that had defined their entire relationship. She found it both frustrating and oddly reassuring. On the day of departure, the group gathered at Capsule Corporation. The dimensional spacecraft sat on the launch pad, sleek and purpose-built. Bulma gave final instructions, emphasizing the importance of following Shin's guidance once they entered the demon realm. The dimensional physics were unpredictable, and getting lost between worlds could mean never finding their way back. Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Shin, and Kibito boarded the vessel, the hatch sealed. Bulma activated the launch sequence from the control room. the ship lifted smoothly into the sky, ascending beyond Earth's atmosphere and into the void of space. Once they reached a specific set of coordinates provided by Shin, the dimensional drive engaged. Reality around the ship began to warp and shimmer. They were crossing over, leaving Universe 7's mortal plane behind. The sensation of dimensional travel was disorienting. Colors shifted in ways that defied description. Distance became meaningless. Time felt both compressed and stretched. Goku pressed his face against a viewport, watching the impossible geometries of interdimensional space flow past. Vegeta sat with his arms crossed, eyes closed, focusing inward. Piccolo meditated. Shin and Kibito monitored navigation instruments that registered the ship's progress through layers of reality. After what felt like both seconds and hours, the ship emerged into the demon realm. The view through the viewport revealed a sky of unfamiliar colors, a landscape that blended the alien with the ancient. Structures rose in the distance, built in architectural styles that predated any mortal civilization. The air itself felt different, heavier, charged with magic rather than technology. Shin directed the ship toward a landing site on the outskirts of a demonic settlement. They descended carefully, aware that their arrival would not go unnoticed. When the hatch opened and the crew disembarked, they were immediately struck by the atmosphere. The gravity felt slightly different, not oppressive but noticeably distinct from Earth's. The ambient sounds carried tones that seemed to resonate with frequencies outside normal hearing ranges. Local demons observed the newcomers with curiosity and suspicion. Small in stature, clearly outsiders, Goku and the others drew attention wherever they walked. Shin took the lead, using his knowledge of the demon realm to navigate through the settlement. He explained that the realm was divided into multiple worlds or layers, each with its own rulers and territories. Goma had claimed dominion over the first demon world, but pockets of resistance and independent factions still existed. Their first objective was information. Where were the Dragon Balls currently located? Which Tamagami guarded which orb? And most importantly, what was Goma planning now that he had achieved his initial goals? To answer these questions, they needed to find someone trustworthy, someone who opposed Goma's rule, or at least remained neutral enough to deal honestly with outsiders. They found such a person in an unexpected place. A tavern on the edge of the settlement served as a gathering spot for various demon factions. Shin entered first, followed by the others. The atmosphere inside was tense but not hostile. Conversations paused as the group made their way to a corner table. Eventually, a figure approached them, a demon warrior named Glorio, who introduced himself as someone interested in change. Glorio explained that Goma's rise to power had been controversial. Many demons resented his use of the Dragon Balls to eliminate potential threats. The transformation of Earth's warriors was seen as a cowardly move, proof that Goma feared direct confrontation. There were those in the demon realm who believed in strength through combat, not through magical manipulation. Glorio counted himself among them. When Shin revealed their intention to gather the demon realm's Dragon Balls, Glorio's interest intensified. He offered to assist, not out of loyalty to the outsiders, but because weakening Goma served his own goals. An alliance of convenience formed. Glorio would provide local knowledge, contacts, and combat support. In return, Goku and the others would help destabilize Goma's regime. Through Glorio, they learned crucial details. The Demon Realm's Dragon Balls numbered 3, not 7. Each was significantly larger than Earth's and possessed greater power. The dragon they summoned was called Ziku, and Ziku could grant more ambitious wishes than Shenron, though with stricter limitations on what constituted acceptable requests. Most critically, each Dragon Ball was guarded by a Tamagami, warriors who had never been defeated in recorded history. The first Tamagami resided in a fortress carved into a mountain of crystallized magic. The second guarded a temple submerged beneath a lake of liquid darkness. The third watched over a sacred grove where trees grew downward into an abyss. Each location presented unique challenges beyond simply fighting the Guardian. Environmental hazards, Magical wards and labyrinthine passages would test the team's endurance and ingenuity. Goku, energized by the prospect of fighting powerful opponents, expressed eagerness to challenge the first Tamagami immediately. Vegeta, equally motivated, insisted on proving his worth despite his reduced stature. Piccolo cautioned patience. They needed to understand their enemies before engaging. Rushing in without preparation would likely end in failure. Glorio arranged for the team to observe the first Tamagami from a distance. They traveled to the crystallized mountain under cover of darkness, positioning themselves on a ridge overlooking the fortress entrance. The Tamagami emerged. During their surveillance, a towering figure clad in ancient armor, radiating an aura of disciplined power. Just watching the creature move, Goku could sense the depth of its strength. Piccolo analyzed the Tamagami's energy signature. It was stable, controlled, without fluctuation or waste. This was a being that had mastered its power completely, refined through centuries of vigilance. Defeating it would require more than brute force. They would need to identify weaknesses, exploit openings, perhaps even use strategy that the Tamagami had never encountered before. Over the following days, the team prepared. Goku and Vegeta trained together, adapting their techniques to their child bodies and coordinating attacks. Piccolo studied the fortress layout, identifying potential entry points and escape routes. Shin consulted with local scholars who possessed knowledge of the Tamagami's history and combat patterns. Glorio gathered equipment and supplies that might prove useful. When they felt ready, they approached the fortress openly. There was no point in stealth. The Tamagami existed to challenge those who sought the Dragon Ball. It would not be deceived by trickery. As they entered the main courtyard, the Guardian appeared, descending from an upper platform with deliberate slowness. It spoke in a language older than the demon realm itself, words that Shin translated. The Tamagami acknowledged their challenge. It would fight them, test their worthiness. If they could defeat it, the Dragon Ball would be theirs. If they failed, they would be cast out, forbidden from returning for a full cycle of the Demon Realm's moons. The terms were clear. The team accepted. The battle began with Goku and Vegeta attacking in tandem. They had choreographed a series of strikes designed to overwhelm the Tamagami's defenses through sheer volume and unpredictability. Goku went low, targeting legs and midsection. Vegeta went high, aiming for the head and shoulders. Piccolo provided support with energy blasts timed to exploit openings. The Tamagami blocked, parried, and countered with mechanical precision. It moved without wasted motion, each action serving both defensive and offensive purposes. Within seconds, it became clear that the initial assault was ineffective. The Guardian had faced countless challengers. These tactics were familiar to it. Vegeta, frustrated, powered up and unleashed a final flash. The energy beam struck the Tamagami directly, engulfing it in light. When the glow faded, the Guardian stood unharmed, its armor absorbing the attack without visible damage. It retaliated with a sweeping gesture that generated a shockwave, sending Vegeta tumbling backward. Goku switched tactics. Instead of attacking, he focused on observation. He watched the Tamagami's movements, searching for patterns, rhythms, anything that might reveal a weakness. Piccolo, thinking along similar lines, used his extendable arms to probe the Guardian's defenses from multiple angles simultaneously. The Tamagami deflected each probe effortlessly, but in doing so revealed something subtle. There was a brief delay after each defensive action, a microsecond where the Guardian reset its posture. It was infinitesimally small, but it was there. Goku saw it. Piccolo saw it. They exchanged a glance. Without speaking, they formulated a plan. Piccolo would force the Tamagami into a defensive sequence while Goku waited for the reset moment. Piccolo unleashed a barrage of energy attacks, not to damage but to pressure. The Tamagami responded as predicted, deflecting each blast with practiced efficiency. As the final blast was deflected and the Guardian's posture reset, Goku struck. He moved faster than he had in the entire fight, channeling all his speed into a single instant. His fist connected cleanly, driving into the Tamagami's midsection. The Guardian staggered, For the first time, it showed surprise. Goku pressed the advantage, following up with a combination of strikes that kept the Tamagami off balance. Vegeta, recovering from his earlier knockback, rejoined the assault. Together, they hammered at the Guardian relentlessly. But the Tamagami adapted. It adjusted its defensive rhythm, eliminating the reset delay. Now there was no opening. Goku and Vegeta's attacks were once again deflected with ease. The Guardian counterattacked, moving with increased aggression. It was no longer simply defending. It was actively trying to defeat them. The fight intensified. Energy blasts illuminated the courtyard. The ground cracked under the force of impacts. Goku pushed himself, transforming into a Super Saiyan despite the drain it would cause in his child body. His hair turned golden, his aura flared. The power boost was significant, but not overwhelming. The Tamagami remained a formidable opponent. Vegeta followed suit, ascending to Super Saiyan as well. Together, the two Saiyans coordinated a dual assault. They moved in perfect synchronization, each attack complementing the other. The Tamagami struggled to defend against both simultaneously. Cracks began to appear in its armor. Its movements became slightly less precise. Piccolo saw the opportunity. He charged a special beam cannon, focusing all his energy into a single piercing attack. As Goku and Vegeta forced the Tamagami into a defensive stance, Piccolo fired. The spiraling beam lanced through the air, aimed directly at the Guardian's core. The Tamagami raised its arms to block, but the concentrated energy punched through its defense, striking true. The Guardian fell to one knee, its armor fractured, its energy waning. It acknowledged defeat with a solemn nod. The first Dragon Ball was theirs. It materialized in the center of the courtyard, a massive orange sphere etched with a single red star. Goku approached it reverently, recognizing the significance of what they had just accomplished. But there was no time to celebrate. Two more Dragon Balls remained, each guarded by a Tamagami potentially stronger than the first. They needed to keep moving, maintain momentum. Glorio led them back to their temporary base, where they could rest and plan their next move. That evening, as the group recuperated, Shin received disturbing news through his communication link with Kibito. Goma had not been idle. Reports indicated that the Demon King was actively searching for the evil third eye, using resources and informants throughout the demon realm. If he found it before they completed their Dragon Ball quest, the balance of power would shift dramatically in his favor. The race had become more urgent. Goku proposed splitting the team to tackle the remaining two Tamagami simultaneously. Vegeta immediately volunteered to lead one group. Piccolo would lead the other. Shin and Kibito would provide logistical support and coordinate between teams. Glorio would divide his resources to assist both efforts. The plan was risky but necessary. Time was their enemy as much as Goma or the Tamagami. They finalized the details overnight. By dawn, they had separated into two groups. Goku, Piccolo, and Shin would pursue the second Dragon Ball. Vegeta, Kibito, and Glorio would seek the third. Communication crystals provided by Glorio allowed them to stay in contact across distances. Goku's team traveled to the submerged temple, a journey that required descending through caverns filled with bioluminescent fungi and navigating underground rivers that flowed in impossible directions. The water itself was not truly water, but a substance that existed somewhere between liquid and shadow. Touching it produced no sensation of wetness, only a cold numbness that spread slowly through the body. When they reached the temple, they found it partially submerged in a vast underground lake. The structure's architecture defied logic, with pillars that seemed to support nothing and doorways that led to spaces larger than the building's exterior could contain. The second Tamagami awaited them in the central chamber, seated in meditation, surrounded by floating orbs of concentrated darkness. This guardian differed from the first. Where the first Tamagami emphasized physical combat, this one wielded magic as its primary weapon. The battle began not with strikes, but with illusions. The chamber multiplied, creating infinite reflections of itself. Goku found himself separated from Piccolo and Shin, alone in a maze of mirrors that showed distorted versions of his own image. He tried breaking the mirrors, but each one shattered revealed another layer beneath it. His Kamehameha attacks passed through some mirrors as if they were not there, while others reflected the energy back at him. Disorientation set in. He could not tell which direction was real, which path would lead him back to his teammates. Meanwhile, Piccolo faced a different challenge. The Tamagami had created duplicates of him, shadow versions that moved and fought with his own techniques. They knew his strategies because they were him, or at least reflections of him. Every move he made, they countered perfectly. He quickly realized that fighting them was futile. He needed to find and confront the real Tamagami. Shin, using his divine sight, could perceive the underlying structure of the illusions. He saw the threads of magic that held the false reality together. With precise energy strikes, he severed these threads one by one. The chamber's illusions began to collapse, layers peeling away like onion skin. Gradually, the true environment revealed itself. Goku and Piccolo reunited, finding themselves standing before the second Tamagami. The Guardian rose from meditation, acknowledging that they had passed the first test, but the real battle was just beginning. The Tamagami extended its hands, and darkness coalesced into tangible weapons, blades forged from shadow that could cut through energy itself. Goku attacked with a flurry of punches and kicks, but the shadow blades deflected each strike. Piccolo fired ki blasts, but the darkness absorbed them, growing stronger. This Tamagami could not be defeated through conventional combat. They needed a different approach. Shin suggested exploiting the Guardian's reliance on darkness. If they could generate enough light, pure and sustained, it might weaken the shadow-based abilities. Goku immediately understood. He began charging energy, not for an attack, but for illumination. His ki flared brighter and brighter, filling the chamber with golden light. The Tamagami recoiled, its shadow weapons flickering. Piccolo joined the effort, channeling his own energy into light-based techniques. Together with Goku, they created a radiance that pushed back the darkness completely. The Tamagami, stripped of its primary weapon, reverted to physical combat. But without its magical advantages, it was vulnerable. The fight concluded quickly. Goku delivered a decisive blow that sent the Guardian crashing into the temple floor. It acknowledged defeat, and the second Dragon Ball materialized, marked with 2 red stars. They had succeeded, but the victory felt hard-won. This Tamagami had challenged them in ways the first had not, forcing them to think creatively rather than rely solely on strength. Back on the surface, they received communication from Vegeta's team. The news was mixed. They had located the third Tamagami's sacred grove, but the Guardian itself had proven elusive. The grove was a maze of inverted trees whose roots extended into an abyss below. Gravity shifted unpredictably, and spatial orientation was meaningless. Vegeta was frustrated, insisting they were close to a breakthrough, but progress was slow. Goku's team decided to join them. With 2 Dragon Balls secured, combining forces for the third made strategic sense. They navigated back through the underground caverns and met Vegeta's group at the grove's entrance. Vegeta's expression was tight with barely contained irritation. He had been searching for hours without encountering the Tamagami directly. Glorio explained that the third Guardian was known as the most enigmatic. It did not wait in a fixed location, but wandered the grove, appearing only to those it deemed worthy. Worthiness was not determined by strength, but by intention, purity of purpose, and resilience of spirit. The grove itself tested visitors, presenting trials that revealed their true character. The combined team entered together. Immediately, the environment asserted its strangeness. Trees grew both up and down, their branches intertwining to create pathways that defied conventional geometry. Gravity shifted without warning, sometimes pulling sideways, sometimes reversing entirely. Walking became an exercise in constant adjustment. As they ventured deeper, the grove began presenting individual challenges. Goku found himself alone again, facing a trial of endurance. He had to maintain a specific key output continuously while navigating an obstacle course that adapted to counter his every move. The moment his energy wavered, the trial reset, forcing him to start over. Vegeta's trial tested his pride. He was confronted with illusions of his past failures, moments where he had been defeated or outclassed. The Grove demanded that he acknowledge these failures without bitterness, to accept them as part of his journey rather than sources of shame. It was perhaps the hardest thing Vegeta had ever been asked to do. Piccolo faced a trial of identity. The Grove showed him alternate versions of himself, paths he could have taken, lives he could have lived. It asked him to affirm his choices without regret, to own his current self completely. He meditated on each possibility and consciously chose his actual history, validating every decision that had led him to this moment. Shin's trial was one of reconciliation. He was shown visions of the Gesu, his brother, and asked to confront his feelings about their estrangement. The Grove would not let him pass until he acknowledged both his love for his brother and his acceptance that they had chosen different paths. It was painful but necessary. When each team member completed their individual trials, the Grove reconfigured itself, bringing them all to a central clearing. There, the third Tamagami waited. Unlike the previous Guardians, this one appeared almost peaceful, seated beneath an inverted tree, eyes closed in serene meditation. It spoke softly, acknowledging their successful navigation of the Grove's tests. The trials had proven their worthiness. There would be no physical battle. Instead, the Tamagami offered the Dragon Ball freely, recognizing that they sought it for noble reasons, to undo an injustice rather than to gain power for themselves. The third Dragon Ball appeared, marked with 3 red stars. They now possessed all 3 Dragon Balls of the Demon Realm. The relief was palpable, but tempered by awareness of what came next. They needed to summon Ziku and make their wish, but doing so would alert Goma to their success. The Demon King would undoubtedly attempt to interfere. Glorio suggested performing the summoning at a neutral location, away from Goma's strongholds. There was an ancient plaza in the border region between the first and second demon worlds, a place where old treaties forbade military action. It was as safe a location as they were likely to find. They traveled to the plaza under cover of night, moving quickly and quietly. The 3 Dragon Balls were transported carefully, each one requiring significant effort to carry due to their size and weight. When they arrived, they arranged the orbs in a triangular formation, as instructed by Shin based on his knowledge of Demon Realm summoning rituals. Shin spoke the invocation in the ancient demon language. The sky above the plaza darkened, swirling with energy. Lightning cracked, and then Ziku appeared, a dragon even more magnificent than Shenron, its scales shimmering with colors that seemed to shift between visible and invisible spectrums. Its voice resonated not just in their ears, but in their minds, a form of communication that transcended sound. Ziku asked for their wish. Goku stepped forward and made the request clearly. Reverse the transformation that turned the Earth's warriors and their allies into children. Restore them to their original ages. Ziku considered the request, its eyes glowing as it assessed whether the wish fell within acceptable parameters. After a moment that felt like eternity, Ziku confirmed it could grant the wish. But there was a complication. The transformation had been made using Earth's Dragon Balls, which created a link. To fully reverse it, Ziku would need to coordinate with Shenron, establishing a temporary connection between the 2 dragons. This would take time, and during that time, the summoning would be visible to anyone with the ability to sense magical activity. They had no choice but to proceed. Goku confirmed the wish. Ziku began the process, its aura expanding to encompass the entire plaza. Energy flowed between the Demon Realm and Universe 7, creating a bridge that spanned dimensional barriers. On Earth, Shenron manifested spontaneously, responding to Ziku's call. The 2 dragons worked in concert, their combined power unraveling Goma's wish. On Earth, the effects were immediate. Goku's friends and family felt the transformation reversing. Their bodies grew, matured, returning to their proper ages. Balma, back in her lab, watched in amazement as her adult form restored itself. Gohan, in his study, experienced the same restoration. Across the planet, every person affected by Goma's wish regained their original age. In the demon realm, the plaza suddenly erupted with activity. Goma's forces had detected the summoning. Demon soldiers poured into the area from multiple directions, intent on disrupting the wish before it completed. Goku, Vegeta, and the others moved to intercept, buying time for Ziku to finish. The battle was chaotic. Demon soldiers attacked in organized formations, using tactics refined over millennia. Goku and Vegeta, still in their child forms, fought with everything they had. Piccolo provided covering fire, his energy blasts keeping entire squads at bay. Glorio engaged his own kind, fighting with a skill born from intimate familiarity with demon combat styles. Shin and Kibito focused on protecting Ziku during the critical final moments of the wish. They erected barriers, deflected attacks, did whatever was necessary to ensure the dragon could complete its work. The coordination between Ziku and Shenron was delicate, requiring absolute concentration. Just as the demon forces threatened to overwhelm their defense, the wish completed. Ziku and Shenron simultaneously announced the fulfillment of their request. Energy pulsed outward from the plaza, a shockwave of magical force that knocked back the attacking demons. And in that same instant, Goku and Vegeta felt their bodies change. They grew rapidly, their child forms giving way to their adult physiques. Muscles returned, height increased, power flooded back in full measure. Within seconds, Goku stood at his full stature, his fighting gi fitting properly again. Vegeta, beside him, regained his intimidating presence. They looked at each other and grinned. The demon soldiers, seeing this transformation, hesitated. They had been briefed that the intruders were weakened children. Facing two fully powered adult Saiyans was a completely different scenario. Goku and Vegeta wasted no time capitalizing on their renewed strength. They tore through the demon forces with ease, each strike carrying the full weight of their restored power. The battle concluded swiftly. The remaining demon soldiers retreated, unwilling to face such overwhelming opposition. Ziku, having granted the wish, prepared to depart. Before vanishing, the dragon offered a warning. Goma would not accept this defeat lightly. He would seek revenge, and he still pursued the evil third eye. They should be cautious. With Ziku gone, the Dragon Balls scattered across the demon realm, turning to stone as was their nature after use. The mission was accomplished, but the larger conflict with Goma remained unresolved. Glorio informed them that with their identities now exposed, remaining in the demon realm would be dangerous. Goma would mobilize his full military might against them. Shin agreed. They should return to Earth while they still could. But Goku hesitated. He felt that leaving now would only postpone the inevitable confrontation. Goma needed to be dealt with permanently, either defeated or convinced to abandon his hostile intentions toward Earth. Vegeta supported this view, eager for a direct fight with the Demon King. Piccolo pointed out that they lacked information about Goma's current location and defenses. Charging in blindly would be foolish. Glorio offered to gather intelligence, using his network of contacts to locate Goma and assess his forces. The group agreed to wait, using the time to rest and recover from the battles against the Tamagami. Over the following days, Glorio's network provided valuable information. Goma had indeed located the evil third eye. The artifact had been hidden in an ancient vault beneath the Demon King's palace, sealed away after King Abura's death. Goma had broken the seals and claimed the eye for himself. Reports indicated he had already begun experimenting with its power. This news was troubling. The evil third eye was said to amplify the user's abilities exponentially, with no apparent limit except the user's own imagination and will. In Goma's hands, it could make him virtually unstoppable. The window for confronting him was closing rapidly. Every hour they delayed gave Goma more time to master the artifact's power. Goku advocated for immediate action. Vegeta agreed. Piccolo, though cautious, acknowledged the urgency. Shin reluctantly supported the decision, knowing that allowing Goma to fully harness the third eye's power would doom any future attempt to stop him. They would attack the Demon King's palace, confront Goma directly, and end this conflict one way or another. Glorio provided maps and intelligence on the palace defenses. The structure was heavily fortified, protected by magical wards and garrisoned with elite demon warriors. Conventional infiltration would be impossible. They would need to assault it directly, fight their way through the defenses, and reach Goma before reinforcements could arrive. The plan was straightforward, because it had to be. Complexity introduced points of failure, and they could not afford failure. Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo would form the primary assault team. Shin and Kibito would disable the magical wards. Glorio would coordinate with sympathetic demon factions to create diversions and prevent reinforcements from reaching the palace. They launched the assault at dawn. The palace, an imposing structure of dark stone and crimson banners, sat atop a plateau overlooking the first demon world's capital. The approach was steep and exposed, but speed was their ally. Goku and Vegeta flew directly toward the main gates while Piccolo provided covering fire from a distance. The palace defenses activated immediately. Energy cannons tracked their approach, firing concentrated blasts. Goku and Vegeta weaved through the barrage, their movements too fast and erratic to target effectively. They reached the gates and, without slowing, smashed through them with brute force. Inside, demon warriors mobilized to intercept. These were not ordinary soldiers, but elite guards trained specifically to protect the Demon King. They fought with discipline and coordination, using formations designed to contain even the most powerful intruders. Goku and Vegeta adapted, working together to break the formations and scatter the defenders. Shin and Kibito, meanwhile, targeted the palace's magical wards. These defensive enchantments would automatically repair damage and summon additional reinforcements if left active. Using their divine energy, they disrupted the ward's power sources, causing cascading failures throughout the palace's defensive network. Glorio's diversions succeeded in drawing away a significant portion of the palace garrison. Explosions erupted in the capital below as sympathetic factions attacked military installations and supply depots. Goma's forces were stretched thin, forced to respond to multiple threats simultaneously. Goku and Vegeta fought their way through the palace interior, ascending toward the throne room where intelligence suggested Goma would be. They encountered increasingly powerful opponents as they climbed, demon warriors who had trained for centuries and possessed techniques that pushed even Saiyans to their limits. One particularly skilled demon wielded shadow magic similar to the second Tamagami. He created zones of absolute darkness where Goku and Vegeta's senses were useless. They countered by releasing massive amounts of ki simultaneously, illuminating the entire chamber and dispelling the shadows. The demon, deprived of his primary advantage, fell quickly afterward. As they neared the throne room, Degesu appeared to block their path. Shin's brother stood with arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He questioned whether they truly understood what they were doing, whether they grasped the political complexities of the demon realm. Goku admitted he did not care about politics. Goma had attacked Earth, turned them into children, and now threatened them with the evil third eye. That made him an enemy, and enemies needed to be stopped. Degesu appreciated the honesty, even if he disagreed with the simplicity. He stepped aside, allowing them to pass. But he offered a warning. Goma with the third eye was not the same demon who had made the initial wish. The artifact changed its wielders, amplifying not just their power but their darkest impulses. The Goma they were about to face might be unrecognizable. They entered the throne room. Goma sat upon an ornate seat, the evil third eye visible on his forehead, glowing with malevolent energy. He looked up as they entered and smiled. He had been expecting them. In fact, he had been hoping they would come. Testing the third eye's power on weaklings would have been unsatisfying. But fighting two legendary Saiyans at full strength? That would provide a proper evaluation of his new abilities. Goma stood, his movements causing the air itself to ripple. The third eye pulsed with energy, and his power level skyrocketed. Goku sensed it and felt a mixture of excitement and concern. This was going to be a real fight. Vegeta beside him was already powering up, golden aura flaring as he transformed into a Super Saiyan. Goku followed suit, ascending through his transformations. Super Saiyan 2. Super Saiyan 3. His long hair flowed with energy, his power shaking the palace foundations. But Goma seemed unimpressed. The third eye had granted him confidence that bordered on arrogance. He gestured dismissively, and a wave of force slammed into both Saiyans, sending them crashing into the throne room walls. They recovered quickly, launching coordinated attacks. Vegeta fired a continuous barrage of energy blasts, while Goku closed the distance for physical strikes. Goma defended against both simultaneously, using barriers of solidified magic that absorbed the energy attacks and repelled Goku's punches. Piccolo entered the throne room, adding his firepower to the assault. Even with three powerful fighters attacking in concert, Goma maintained his defense effortlessly. The third eye was living up to its reputation. It had turned a mid-level demon into something approaching divine power. Goma went on the offensive. He extended his hand, and copies of himself materialized throughout the room. Each copy possessed the same power as the original, making it impossible to determine which was real. The copies attacked independently, forcing Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo to fight on multiple fronts simultaneously. Goku destroyed several copies with a wide-angle Kamehameha, but they simply regenerated. Vegeta's final flash obliterated another cluster with the same result. Piccolo tried targeting the third eye itself with a special beam cannon, but Goma's barriers deflected the attack easily. They were fighting a losing battle. Goma's power, amplified by the third eye, seemed inexhaustible. Every attack they launched was countered or absorbed. Every strategy they attempted was anticipated and neutralized. Goku realized they needed a different approach. Raw power was not going to win this fight. He signaled to Vegeta and Piccolo, conveying a plan through quick gestures. They needed to separate Goma from the third eye. If they could remove the artifact, even temporarily, his power would drop to normal levels. But getting close enough to attempt that was the challenge. Piccolo created a diversion, generating multiple afterimages to confuse Goma's perception. Vegeta unleashed a false charge, drawing the Demon King's attention. And Goku used instant transmission, teleporting behind Goma and reaching for the third eye with blinding speed. His fingers brushed the artifact, but Goma anticipated the move. He grabbed Goku's wrist and hurled him across the room with tremendous force. Goku crashed through several pillars before coming to a stop. The attempt had failed, but it confirmed something important. Goma was not invincible. He could be touched, which meant he could be defeated. The battle continued, each side probing for weaknesses. Goma enjoyed the challenge, relishing the opportunity to test his enhanced abilities against worthy opponents. Goku and Vegeta pushed themselves harder, ascending to new levels of power through sheer determination. During a brief lull in the fighting, Shin and Kibito arrived. They had completed their sabotage of the palace defenses and now joined the battle. Their divine energy, fundamentally different from Saiyan Ki, added a new dimension to the assault. Goma had to adapt his defenses to counter multiple energy types simultaneously. Shin focused on disrupting the third eye's connection to Goma. As a Supreme Kai, he understood divine artifacts and their mechanisms. The third eye was not simply a power booster. It was a parasite, feeding on its host's life force to generate amplified abilities. If he could sever that connection, even briefly, Goma would be vulnerable. Using techniques passed down through generations of Kais, Shin began weaving a counterspell. It required time and concentration, two things the ongoing battle made difficult to maintain. Kibito protected him, deflecting attacks and keeping enemies at bay while Shin worked. Goma noticed Shin's efforts and realized the threat they posed. He directed a massive attack specifically at the Supreme Kai, intending to eliminate him before the counterspell completed. But Goku intercepted, taking the full force of the blast to shield Shin. The impact was devastating, but Goku endured, his determination unwavering. Shin completed the counterspell. He thrust his hand forward, releasing the energy directly toward Goma's forehead. The spell struck the third eye, causing it to flicker and dim. For just a moment, Goma's power dropped dramatically. It was the opening they needed. Vegeta seized the opportunity, unleashing a point-blank final explosion. The technique sacrificed large amounts of his own energy to generate a devastating blast at close range. Goma, his defenses weakened by Shin's spell, took the full impact. The explosion consumed the throne room, collapsing large sections of the ceiling. When the dust settled, Goma lay on the ground, the third eye cracked and leaking energy. He was defeated, but alive. The artifact's power had saved him from complete destruction, but it was failing. Without immediate intervention, the eye would shatter completely. Goku approached cautiously. He offered Goma a choice: surrender, remove the third eye willingly, and face justice through the demon realm's systems, or continue fighting and risk destruction, both his own and the eye's. Goma, weakened and rational thought returning as the third eye's influence faded, chose surrender. Shin carefully extracted the evil third eye from Goma's forehead. The artifact resisted, having bonded with its host, but divine energy eventually severed the connection. Once removed, the eye lost its glow, becoming inert. Shin sealed it within a containment field, ensuring it could not be used again without specific rituals to reactivate it. With Goma defeated and the third eye secured, the crisis was effectively over, but questions remained about what should happen next. The demon realm needed leadership, and Goma's rule had proven disastrous. Glorio suggested a council of representatives from various demon factions, a system that would prevent any single individual from accumulating too much power. Dejisu emerged from the shadows where he had been observing. He supported Glorio's proposal but added a caveat. The council should include representatives from outside the demon realm as well, perhaps the Supreme Kais, to ensure decisions consider broader universal implications. It was a radical idea, but the recent events had demonstrated how actions in the demon realm could affect mortal worlds. Shin agreed to the proposal, seeing it as an opportunity to heal the rift with his brother. Degesu, for his part, seemed willing to move past old resentments. The two discussed establishing formal diplomatic channels between the demon realm and the divine hierarchy, something that had never existed before. As these political arrangements were being negotiated, Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo took their leave. Their mission was complete. They had reversed the H transformation, defeated Goma, and secured the evil third eye. What happened next in the demon realm's governance was not their concern. They were warriors, not politicians. Bulma had sent the dimensional spacecraft to retrieve them, piloted remotely with Glorio's assistance. The journey back to Earth was quieter than the arrival. They were exhausted, satisfied, and ready to return to normalcy. Vegeta was already planning his next training regimen, determined to reach levels of power that would not require divine artifacts or wishes. Goku, characteristically, was thinking about food. He had missed several meals during the Demon Realm adventure, and his Saiyan appetite demanded satisfaction. He talked enthusiastically about visiting his favorite restaurants, trying new dishes, and maybe having a celebratory feast with everyone. Piccolo meditated during the journey, reflecting on what they had learned. The Demon Realm had revealed itself as more complex than expected, not simply a world of evil beings, but a society with its own history, conflicts, and aspirations. The experience had broadened his understanding of the universe's structure. When they arrived on Earth, they were greeted by their friends and family, all restored to their proper ages. Bulma expressed relief at seeing them return safely. Chi-Chi fussed over Goku, inspecting him for injuries despite his protests that he was fine. Gohan wanted to hear every detail of their adventure, his scholarly curiosity piqued by descriptions of the Demon Realm's unique properties. A celebration was organized at Capsule Corporation, mirroring the birthday party that had been interrupted by Goma's initial attack. This time, there were no surprise transformations, no dimensional invaders. It was simply a gathering of friends, sharing food and stories, enjoying peace. During the celebration, Goku found a quiet moment to speak with Vegeta. He acknowledged that the Demon Realm adventure had shown them both areas where they could improve. The Tamagami had challenged them in ways different from their usual battles. The experience with Goma and the Third Eye demonstrated that raw power was not always sufficient. Vegeta, in a rare moment of agreement, nodded. He admitted that adapting to his child body had forced him to rely more on technique and strategy, skills he sometimes neglected in favor of brute force. The lessons learned would inform his future training. He intended to become more well-rounded, more adaptable. As the celebration wound down and guests began departing, Shin approached Goku privately. He thanked the Saiyan for his help, both in the Demon Realm and in previous crises. Goku shrugged off the gratitude, insisting he had simply done what needed doing. But Shin pressed the point. Earth was fortunate to have protectors like Goku, warriors who fought not for glory or power, but because it was the right thing to do. Goku, somewhat embarrassed by the praise, changed the subject. He asked Shin about Degesu, whether the two brothers had truly reconciled. Shin explained that it was complicated. They had agreed to work together to establish better communication between their respective domains, but centuries of estrangement could not be erased overnight. Still, it was a beginning, and that mattered. In the weeks following their return, life on Earth gradually returned to normal. Gohan resumed his studies, making up for lost time. Piccolo returned to his meditation and training. Krillin went back to his duties as a police officer, though he found his regular work mundane compared to interdimensional adventures. Vegeta threw himself into training with renewed intensity. He spent hours in the gravity chamber, pushing his limits, exploring new techniques. Bulma would occasionally check on him, reminding him to take breaks, but she knew better than to interrupt his focus. This was how Vegeta processed experiences, by transforming them into motivation for self-improvement. Goku divided his time between training and family. Chi-Chi insisted he spend more time at home, helping with chores and being present for Goten. Goku made an effort to comply, though his mind often wandered to thoughts of sparring and new challenges. He wondered what adventures awaited in the future, what opponents he might face. One evening, as Goku sat outside looking at the stars, he reflected on the complete timeline of their Demon Realm adventure. It had begun with a malicious wish, an attempt to weaken Earth's defenders. It had progressed through dimensional travel, battles against ancient guardians, and a confrontation with a power-mad Demon King. It had ended with political reformation and renewed diplomatic ties. The scope of the adventure impressed him when viewed as a whole. They had not just fought enemies but navigated unfamiliar cultures, forged alliances, and influenced the governance of an entire realm. It was different from their usual pattern of fighting and moving on. There had been consequences, changes that would ripple through both the mortal universe and the demon realm for years to come. Goku smiled to himself. Life was full of surprises. Just when he thought he understood the universe's structure, something new emerged. The demon realm had been a revelation, proof that there were still mysteries to explore, powers to discover, challenges to face. He looked forward to what came next. Maybe another threat would emerge from an unexpected corner of the cosmos. Maybe a new tournament would be announced, bringing together fighters from different dimensions. Maybe peace would last long enough for everyone to truly relax. Whatever happened, Goku knew he would face it with the same approach he had always taken, with enthusiasm, determination, and an unshakable belief that things would work out. In the demon realm, changes were indeed occurring. Glorio's council system had been implemented, bringing together representatives from various demon factions. Decisions that once rested solely with the Demon King now required consensus. It was a messier system, full of debate and compromise, but it was also more stable, less susceptible to the whims of a single ruler. Daijetsu had taken on a role as liaison between the council and the Supreme Kais. He facilitated communication, translated intentions, and helped both sides understand each other's perspectives. It was work he found surprisingly fulfilling. For the first time in centuries, he felt he was contributing something meaningful. Dr. Arinsu, Degesu's sister, had also found a place in the new order. Her scientific knowledge and magical expertise made her invaluable for understanding and controlling artifacts like the evil third eye. She worked with a team of demon scholars to catalog dangerous items and develop safety protocols for their handling or destruction. The evil third eye itself remained in Shin's custody, sealed within multiple layers of divine energy. Periodic checks confirmed the seals remained intact. There were discussions about whether to destroy the artifact entirely, but some argued it should be preserved as a historical object and a warning against the dangers of unchecked ambition. Goma, meanwhile, faced trial before the new council. His crimes were numerous, but his punishment was measured. He was stripped of all titles and authority, placed under house arrest, and required to provide testimony about his actions and motivations. The council wanted to understand what had driven him to such extremes, to learn from the situation and prevent similar occurrences. During his testimony, Goma explained his perspective. He had genuinely believed Earth's warriors posed an existential threat to the demon realm. Their power, demonstrated during the Buu saga, seemed impossible to counter through conventional means. His wish to transform them into children had been, in his mind, a defensive action. The pursuit of the evil third eye had been an escalation, yes, but driven by fear that Earth would eventually invade. The council found his reasoning flawed, but not entirely without basis. They acknowledged that the demon realm had been isolated for too long, operating on outdated assumptions about the mortal universe. Opening diplomatic channels, as Shin and Degesu were doing, would help prevent future misunderstandings born from ignorance and fear. Neva, the elderly Namekian who had assisted Goma, also testified. He explained that his participation had been motivated by curiosity rather than malice. He had wanted to see how the Dragon Balls he created would function when used for such a specific wish. He had not fully considered the moral implications, focused instead on the technical challenge. The council debated his culpability but ultimately decided on a lighter sentence: community service, using his Dragon Ball expertise to improve the demon realm's wish-granting systems. Back on Earth, the Dragon Balls had scattered after being used to reverse the age transformation. Bulma developed a new Dragon Radar, incorporating lessons learned from the dimensional technology used for the demon realm journey. The updated radar could potentially detect Dragon Balls across dimensional barriers, though testing that functionality would require another trip to the demon realm. Dende, as Earth's guardian, reflected on the recent events with mixed feelings. Learning about his Namekian heritage's connection to the demon realm had been jarring. He had always known Namekians were not originally from Earth, but discovering their demonic ancestry added layers to his understanding of his own nature. Mr. Popo, who had been aware of his own demon heritage, helped Dende process this information, sharing stories and knowledge accumulated over centuries. Piccolo, being part of Dende's extended Namekian lineage, also grappled with these revelations. He had spent his early life as a literal demon, spawned from King Piccolo's final moments. Learning that this demon identity had roots in an actual demon realm gave context to aspects of himself he had never fully understood. It did not change who he was, but it explained certain quirks of his nature. The Z fighters gradually integrated their demon realm experiences into their personal narratives. Krillin told stories at the police station, though his colleagues assumed he was joking or exaggerating. Yamcha, who had not participated in the adventure, felt a mixture of relief at avoiding danger and regret at missing out on something historic. Tien and Xiaotzu, training in the mountains, heard about the events secondhand. Tien expressed interest in visiting the demon realm someday, curious about its martial arts traditions and whether they offered techniques worth learning. Xiaotzu was less enthusiastic but supportive of whatever Tien wanted to pursue. Master Roshi, enjoying retirement on his island, listened to Krillin's account of the adventure with amusement. He noted that every generation of fighters seemed to face increasingly bizarre challenges. In his day, it had been simple tournaments and the occasional world domination scheme. Now his students were traveling between dimensions and fighting demon kings. Progress, he supposed, though not necessarily the kind he would have predicted. Android 18, hearing about Vegeta and Goku's transformation into children, made several jokes at Krillin's expense about missing the opportunity to see them as kids. Krillin, who had also been transformed, pointed out that he had not enjoyed the experience. Being shorter than usual, even temporarily, had not been pleasant. Future Trunks, visiting from his timeline, was fascinated by accounts of the demon realm. His timeline's Earth had never experienced Goma's attack, suggesting the Demon King's decision to target Universe 7's main timeline had been deliberate. Future Trunks wondered if demon realms existed in all timelines or if dimensional structures worked differently than temporal ones. The questions were philosophical but intriguing. Bulma collaborated with Future Trunks on researching dimensional versus temporal mechanics. They theorized that dimensions existed parallel to all timelines, accessible from any temporal branch but maintaining their own consistent histories. If true, it meant the demon realm they had visited existed adjacent to every version of Universe 7, a singular entity touching multiple timelines simultaneously. These theoretical discussions interested Gohan tremendously. He spent hours with Bulma and Future Trunks, contributing his own insights drawn from his studies of physics and interdimensional theory. Together they began drafting a paper on the subject, though they acknowledged it could never be published in mainstream academic journals. The evidence was empirical but unreplicatable under controlled conditions. Videl, Gohan's wife, supported his intellectual pursuits while also ensuring he maintained balance. She reminded him that family time was important, that their daughter Pan needed her father present. Gohan agreed, making conscious efforts to partition his time effectively between research, training, family, and his day job. Pan herself, still an infant, had been affected by Goma's wish along with other children. She had briefly become even younger, a change that terrified Videl until the reversal occurred. The experience made Videl acutely aware of how interconnected their lives were with cosmic events. One demon's whim could alter her daughter's very existence. It was a sobering realization. Hercule, Pan's grandfather, had also been transformed into a child during the incident. The experience had been thoroughly documented by media cameras, as Hercule was Earth's most famous martial artist. His sudden transformation and subsequent reversal had sparked global discussions about the Dragon Ball's existence and capabilities. The world's governments once again began asking questions about these legendary artifacts. The various governments approached Capsule Corporation. Knowing of Bulma's connections to the Z-Fighters, they wanted assurances that the Dragon Balls would not be misused, that proper safeguards existed. Bulma, accustomed to such inquiries, provided vague reassurances while revealing nothing specific. The Dragon Balls would continue to operate as they always had, their use determined by those capable of gathering them. King Furry, Earth's monarch, personally met with Bulma and Mr. Satan to discuss the situation. He expressed concern about external threats targeting Earth through the Dragon Balls. Goma's attack had demonstrated vulnerabilities in Earth's defenses against dimensional threats. What would happen if other realms decided to use the Dragon Balls for hostile purposes? Bulma explained that Dende, as Guardian, had the authority to deactivate the Dragon Balls if necessary. If Earth faced existential threats specifically because of the Dragon Ball's existence, they could be turned off, rendered permanently inert. It was a last resort, but the option existed. King Furry found this reassuring, though he hoped such a drastic measure would never become necessary. In the months following the Demon Realm adventure, normalcy gradually reasserted itself. The crisis had passed, the transformations had been reversed, and life continued. But the experience had left marks, both visible and invisible. Relationships had shifted, understandings had deepened, the universe had revealed more of its complexity. Goku and Vegeta's rivalry continued, but with subtle changes. Their time fighting together in the demon realm had reinforced their capacity for cooperation. They still competed, still pushed each other, But there was less antagonism, more mutual respect. They were partners in a way they had not quite been before. Piccolo's relationship with Gohan also evolved. Their training sessions became less frequent as Gohan's academic and family obligations increased, but when they did meet, the conversations went deeper. They discussed philosophy, ethics, the nature of power and responsibility. Piccolo found himself enjoying the role of mentor in new ways, teaching not just techniques but wisdom. If you're still awake halfway through, maybe subscribe before you drift off, and tell me what time it is where you're watching from. Shin and Kibito maintained regular contact with the demon realm through Degesu. Monthly briefings kept them informed of political developments, potential threats, and opportunities for collaboration. The relationship between divine and demonic authorities, once non-existent, was becoming institutionalized. One particular collaboration involved Namekian exchanges. Several Namekians from Universe 7's various communities expressed interest in visiting the demon realm to learn about their ancestral connections. Dejisu facilitated these visits, arranging for demon scholars to share historical records and cultural knowledge. These exchanges revealed fascinating details. Namekians had originated in the demon realm but had migrated to other worlds millennia ago, seeking to escape the realm's constant conflicts. Over generations, they had evolved, their demonic traits diminishing as they adapted to mortal worlds. The pointed ears remained as a vestigial marker, but most other physical and magical characteristics had changed. The demon realm's Namekians, those who had never left, retained more obviously demonic features. They were taller, their skin tones darker, their magical abilities more pronounced. Meeting them, Piccolo and Dende saw what they might have been if their ancestors had made different choices. It was disconcerting but enlightening. Cultural exchanges went both ways. Demons visited Earth under strict supervision, experiencing mortal society for the first time. They were fascinated by technology, which the demon realm had never developed to the same degree, relying instead on magic for equivalent functions. Bulma found herself hosting demon engineers, explaining principles of physics and showing them how technology and magic might be integrated. These visitors were carefully vetted. Only demons with no history of violence against mortals were permitted. Even then, they were monitored constantly. Earth's governments remained nervous about allowing demons onto the planet, no matter how peaceful they claimed to be. Trust would take time to build. Glorio visited Earth during one exchange program. He met with Goku and Vegeta, sparring with them to compare fighting styles. The matches were friendly but intense, demonstrating how demon martial arts differed from Saiyan techniques. Demons favored precision and efficiency, conserving energy, while Saiyans embraced overwhelming force and continuous escalation. Glorio expressed interest in learning the Super Saiyan transformation, curious whether demons could achieve similar states. Vegeta explained it was specifically a Saiyan trait, tied to their biology and emotional responses. But he suggested that demons might have their own equivalent transformations, techniques that had been forgotten or lost over centuries of relative peace. The idea intrigued Glorio. He returned to the demon realm and began researching ancient texts, looking for references to demon transformations. What he found suggested that demons had once possessed multiple forms, each accessing different aspects of their magical nature. These transformations had fallen out of use as demon society became more structured and less martial. Reviving these lost transformations became a project for demon martial artists. Glorio led the effort, working with scholars and warriors to reconstruct techniques from fragmentary descriptions. It was slow work, requiring both intellectual understanding and practical experimentation. But progress was being made. On Earth, life's rhythm continued. Seasons changed. Years passed. The Demon Realm adventure became part of the Z Fighters' history, a story told at gatherings but gradually receding into the past. New challenges emerged, unrelated to demons or wishes, keeping the warriors occupied, but the connections forged during that adventure persisted. Communication lines remained open, trade relationships developed, Cultural exchanges continued. The demon realm was no longer a distant mystery but an accessible neighbor, strange and different, but no longer threatening. Goku sometimes thought about returning to the demon realm, not for any mission but simply to explore. There had been entire regions they had not visited, cultures they had not encountered. The realm was vast, containing multitudes. A proper exploration could take years. Vegeta had similar thoughts, though his motivation was competitive rather than curious. He wanted to test himself against the demon realm's strongest warriors to see how he measured up against beings who had trained for millennia. The Tamagami had been impressive, but surely there were others of equal or greater skill. Piccolo contemplated visiting the Namekian communities in the demon realm. He wanted to understand that side of his heritage more fully, to learn what his ancestors had been before they left for mortal worlds. It might provide insights into his own nature, aspects of himself he had never fully grasped. These plans remained theoretical for now. Life on Earth kept everyone busy, but the possibility existed, the knowledge that the demon realm was accessible, the doors once closed were now open. It changed how they thought about the universe, expanded their conception of what was possible. The Dragon Balls of Earth continued their cycle. Every few months, someone would gather them for a wish. The wishes varied in significance. Some were trivial, personal desires. Others addressed serious problems, reviving the dead or healing the sick. Dende monitored these uses, ensuring the Dragon Balls served their intended purpose. On one occasion, a wish was made that surprised everyone. Someone asked Shenron to strengthen the connection between Earth and the demon realm, to make travel easier and safer. Shenron granted the wish, creating stable dimensional pathways that did not require specialized spacecraft. The implications were enormous. With easier travel, exchange programs expanded dramatically. More demons visited Earth, more humans and Namekians visited the demon realm. Trade in goods and knowledge flourished. The two realms, once completely separate, were becoming increasingly interconnected. Not everyone welcomed this development. Conservative factions in both realms argued against integration. On Earth, some feared demon influence would corrupt mortal society. In the demon realm, some worried that mortal values would erode demon traditions. These concerns were not entirely without merit, but they were ultimately overcome by the benefits of cooperation. Politically, the relationship between realms evolved. Treaties were negotiated, covering trade, travel, and mutual defense. The agreements established that neither realm would interfere in the other's internal affairs without invitation. Disputes would be resolved through diplomatic channels rather than force. The Tamagami, those ancient guardians of the demon realm's Dragon Balls, adapted to the new reality. They continued their protective duties, but also served as advisors to Glorio's council. Their perspectives, shaped by centuries of observation, provided valuable context for policy decisions. The second Tamagami, the one who wielded shadow magic, became particularly influential. It had observed the battles involving Earth's warriors and recognized the value of integrating different fighting philosophies. It advocated for the demon realm to adopt more diverse combat training, incorporating techniques from mortal martial arts. The third Tamagami, the enigmatic guardian of the sacred grove, remained largely aloof from politics, but it did offer wisdom when consulted, its insights drawn from deep meditation on the nature of existence. Its words, though cryptic, often proved prophetic. Years after the initial adventure, Goku finally made his return visit to the demon realm. He brought Gohan, wanting to share the experience with his son. They traveled through the stable pathways, emerging in the third demon world where Glorio had established a training facility. The facility welcomed warriors from all realms who sought to improve their skills. Goku and Gohan sparred with demon fighters, learning new techniques and teaching their own. The exchanges were mutually beneficial, each side gaining insights that would have been impossible to discover in isolation. During this visit, Goku met with the first Tamagami, the one he had initially battled for the Dragon Ball. The Guardian remembered him well. They sparred again, this time without the pressure of a quest or mission. It was combat as pure expression, two warriors testing each other out of mutual respect. Gohan, meanwhile, explored the demon realm's libraries. He discovered texts that predated any mortal civilization, accounts of events that had shaped the universe's structure. Some of these accounts contradicted or expanded upon what the Kais had taught. He took detailed notes, planning to incorporate this knowledge into his research. Father and son spent 2 weeks in the demon realm before returning to Earth. The experience strengthened their bond, giving them shared memories distinct from their usual Earth-based activities. Chi-Chi noticed the difference when they returned, how easily they laughed together, how naturally they cooperated. Vegeta, hearing about their trip, immediately planned his own visit. He brought Trunks, replicating Goku's father-son approach, but with Vegeta's characteristic intensity. Their training sessions in the demon realm were grueling, pushing both to their limits. Trunks returned to Earth with new respect for his father's dedication and new confidence in his own abilities. These visits became somewhat regular, not frequent enough to disrupt Earth routines, but common enough that the demon realm felt accessible rather than exotic. The younger generation of Z-Fighters, Trunks, Goten, and eventually Pan, grew up knowing that dimensional travel was possible, that the universe extended beyond what they could see from Earth. Pan, as she grew older, showed particular interest in the demon realm. Her quarter Saiyan heritage gave her considerable power, and she wanted to understand how it compared to demon warriors. Gohan, protective but supportive, arranged for her to train with Glorio when she reached adolescence. The training was transformative. Pan learned to channel her energy with precision rather than relying purely on Saiyan power. She studied demon martial arts, which emphasized control and efficiency. When she returned to Earth, her fighting style had evolved, incorporating the best elements of both approaches. Videl watched her daughter's development with mixed emotions. Pride at Pan's accomplishments competed with concern about the dangers she faced. But Gohan reassured her that danger existed everywhere, that training made Pan safer rather than less so. Reluctantly, Videl agreed, though she insisted on safety protocols and regular check-ins. The passage of time brought changes to the demon realm as well. Glorio's council system matured, its procedures becoming more refined. Disputes that once might have escalated to violence were now resolved through structured debate and compromise. The realm was more stable than it had been in millennia. Goma, having served his sentence, was eventually released from house arrest. He had spent years reflecting on his actions, aided by counselors who helped him process his fear and ambition. When he emerged, he was a changed demon, humbler and more thoughtful. He sought no return to power, instead dedicating himself to teaching young demons about the dangers of unchecked ambition. Dr. Arinsu's work on artifact safety had expanded into a broader field of magical ethics. She developed guidelines for the responsible use of powerful items and techniques. Her research influenced policy not just in the demon realm, but also among the Supreme Kais, who had historically been less systematic in their approach to such matters. Dejesu and Shin's relationship continued to heal. They met regularly, sometimes for official business, but increasingly just as brothers catching up on each other's lives. The centuries of separation had left scars, but time and consistent effort were gradually addressing them. Neva, the elderly Namekian, completed his community service and retired to a quiet region of the demon realm. He maintained correspondence with Dende, sharing knowledge about Dragon Ball creation and maintenance. Their exchanges led to improvements in how Earth's Dragon Balls functioned, making wishes safer and more precise. The evil Third Eye remained sealed in Shin's custody, its power dormant but not destroyed. Periodically, scholars requested access to study it under controlled conditions. Shin permitted such research when the potential benefits outweighed the risks. Slowly, understanding of the artifact deepened, demystifying its power without making it less dangerous. On Earth, the Z-Fighters aged gracefully. Goku remained energetic and enthusiastic despite advancing years. Vegeta continued training with undiminished intensity. Piccolo's Namekian physiology meant he aged differently, but he still participated in gatherings and training sessions. The younger generation gradually took on more responsibility for Earth's defense. Gohan, Trunks, Goten, and Pan formed a capable team, ready to respond to threats. They had grown up hearing stories of the Demon Realm adventure, the Tamagami battles, and Goma's defeat. Now they were creating their own stories, their own legacy. Chi-Chi, watching her family across the years, felt profound satisfaction. Her husband and sons were heroes, protectors of Earth, and friends to beings from other dimensions. It was not the quiet life she had once envisioned, but it was meaningful, filled with purpose and connection. Bulma, similarly, looked back with no regrets. Her technological innovations had facilitated interdimensional travel, expanded human understanding of the universe, and enabled cooperation between realms. Her son Trunks was growing into a strong, thoughtful warrior. Her husband, despite his rough edges, remained devoted to self-improvement and family. Master Roshi, now truly ancient, spent his final years on his island surrounded by students who visited regularly. He passed peacefully, his last words reportedly a joke about pretty girls. His legacy lived on through those he had trained, the martial arts traditions he had preserved, and the stories told at gatherings. The Dragon Balls were used to revive him briefly for one final celebration. He appeared, confused but pleased, at a reunion organized by Krillin. He saw how everyone had grown, the families they had built, the peace they had achieved. He told them he was proud, that they had surpassed his wildest expectations. Then he returned to the afterlife content. Kami and King Yama, in the afterlife, noted the increasing number of demons passing through. The integration of realms meant demon souls were now subject to the same judgment as mortal ones. It required adjustments to bureaucratic processes, but ultimately the principles remained the same. Good deeds led to rewards, evil acts to punishment. In the demon realm, similar adjustments were occurring. Traditionally, demon souls had remained in the realm after death, cycling through reincarnation. But some demons now died while in mortal worlds, their souls passing into Universe 7's afterlife system. Negotiations between Shin and the Demon Council established protocols for handling such cases. These were small details, technical adjustments to accommodate new realities, but they represented the deep integration occurring between realms. What had once been completely separate were now interconnected, their fates intertwined. Goku, reflecting on all this during one of his meditative moments, recognized the magnitude of what had begun with Goma's seemingly malicious wish. That single act had set in motion changes that transformed the relationship between dimensions. An attempt to weaken Earth had instead created bridges, fostered understanding, and built alliances. It was ironic, he thought, how often the worst intentions produced unexpected good outcomes. Goma had meant harm, but his actions had revealed the demon realm's existence to Earth and forced both sides to engage with each other. From that forced engagement had grown something valuable, something neither side would willingly give up now. Vegeta, when Goku shared this reflection, scoffed. He attributed the positive outcomes to their intervention, their refusal to accept Goma's actions. Without the Z-Fighters traveling to the demon realm and confronting the threat directly, nothing good would have emerged. Goku conceded the point, but maintained that even negative catalysts could serve positive purposes. Their philosophical discussions had become more common over the years. Both warriors had matured, their perspectives deepened by experience. They still competed, still pushed each other toward greater strength. But they also talked, really talked, in ways they never had when younger. Piccolo occasionally joined these discussions, offering his own insights. The three of them, Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo, formed a core around which Earth's defense had organized. They were not the only powerful warriors, but they were the most experienced, the most strategic, the most reliable. When threats emerged, whether from space, other dimensions, or Earth itself, these three led the response. They coordinated younger fighters, developed strategies, and when necessary, fought on the front lines. Their presence provided reassurance, a sense that no matter what came, Earth had protectors capable of facing it. The Demon Realm adventure had become a template for how they approached unknown situations. First, gather information. Second, seek allies where possible. Third, address threats directly but with awareness of broader consequences. Fourth, look for ways to turn conflicts into opportunities for positive relationship building. These principles served them well in subsequent challenges. When hostile aliens arrived seeking Earth's resources, the Z-Fighters defeated them militarily, but then negotiated trade agreements that satisfied the aliens' needs without harming Earth. When dimensional rifts threatened to merge unstable realities, they worked with Supreme Kais and Demon Scholars to stabilize the barriers. Each challenge taught new lessons, revealed new complexities. The universe was vast, full of beings with their own motivations and histories. Simplistic good versus evil narratives rarely captured the full truth. Most conflicts arose from misunderstandings, fear, or scarcity. Solutions required empathy as much as strength. Goku embodied this evolved approach. He fought when necessary, but always looked for alternatives. He made friends across species and dimensions, his natural charisma and genuine interest in others, breaking down barriers. Former enemies became allies, antagonists became training partners. Vegeta's journey was different but parallel. His pride remained, but it had transformed from arrogance into dignity. He acknowledged others' strength without feeling diminished. He admitted mistakes without destroying his self-image. He loved his family openly, without viewing emotional connection as weakness. Piccolo achieved something perhaps more remarkable. He had started as a literal Demon King's offspring, created to exact revenge on Goku. Through choices and relationships, he had transformed entirely, becoming one of Earth's most trusted defenders and wisest advisors. His past no longer defined him except as context for understanding his present. These transformations, personal and collective, mirrored the larger changes occurring between Earth and the Demon Realm. What had begun as hostility had evolved into cooperation. What had seemed like incompatible differences had revealed themselves as complementary strengths. What had felt like inevitable conflict had transformed into productive partnership. The complete timeline of Dragon Ball Daima was not just about a wish and its reversal, a demon king and his defeat. It was about connections forged, understandings achieved, and futures shaped. It was about how a crisis could catalyze growth, how enemies could become allies, how the universe's vastness could bring beings together rather than drive them apart. As night settled over Earth, Goku stood outside his house, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond normal space, the Demon Realm existed. Friends lived there now, allies who had once been strangers, or even enemies. The universe felt both larger and more intimate than it ever had before. He thought about Goma, now a teacher rather than a tyrant. He thought about Glorio, building a new political system from the ruins of the old. He thought about the Tamagami, ancient guardians adapting to changing times. He thought about the Gesu and Shin, brothers reconnecting after centuries apart. All these stories, these lives transformed, had emerged from what began as a simple malicious wish. Goma had wanted to weaken Earth's defenders, to protect himself from perceived threats. Instead, he had initiated a chain of events that enriched multiple worlds, expanded everyone's horizons, and created bonds that would last generations. Goku smiled. The universe had a way of surprising him. No matter how much he learned, how many battles he fought, how far he traveled, there was always more. More to discover, more to experience, more to become. It was what made life exciting, what drove him forward. He turned and went back inside. Chi-Chi had prepared dinner, and the smell of her cooking filled the house. Simple pleasures, everyday moments, they mattered just as much as interdimensional adventures. Maybe more, in some ways. They grounded him, reminded him what he fought to protect. In the Demon Realm, similar moments of peace were occurring. Glorio finished his council duties and returned home to a quiet evening. Dr. Arinsu completed her research and enjoyed a meal with colleagues. Neva tended his garden, watching plants grow in the Demon Realm's strange soil. The universe continued its vast, incomprehensible rotation, galaxies spun, stars burned, planets orbited, life flourished in countless forms across infinite spaces. And somewhere in all that immensity, connections existed. Beings who had reached across dimensional barriers, found common ground, and chosen cooperation over conflict. The Dragon Ball Daima timeline was complete. Not because the story had ended, but because the beginning, middle, and current state had been traversed. What came next remained unwritten, full of potential ready to unfold in whatever direction the participants chose. And that was perhaps the most important lesson of the entire adventure. Timelines were not fixed. Destinies were not predetermined. Every choice mattered. Every action rippled outward. Every connection changed what was possible. Goma had made choices that led to his downfall. Goku had made choices that led to friendship with former strangers. The demon realm had chosen reform over stagnation. These choices created the timeline, moment by moment, decision by decision. The complete story was never truly complete, because it continued to grow, branch, evolve. What seemed like an ending was just a pause, a breath before the next chapter. On Earth and in the demon realm, beings slept, rested, and dreamed of tomorrow. Some dreamed of training, of becoming stronger. Some dreamed of discovery, of learning new things. Some dreamed of peace, of quiet continuation. All the dreams were valid, all the hopes meaningful. The Dragon Balls, scattered across both realms, lay dormant in their various hiding places. They would gather again when needed, summoning dragons who would grant wishes and set new events in motion. The cycle would continue, as it always had, as it always would. And when morning came, when beings woke and resumed their lives, the connections forged during the demon realm adventure would still exist. They would shape interactions, inform decisions, and enable possibilities that would never have existed without that initial crisis. Goma's wish had tried to make Earth's defenders small. Instead, it had made the universe larger, brought distant realms closer, and demonstrated that size was never what truly mattered. Strength came from connection, from understanding, from willingness to grow. The complete timeline of Dragon Ball Daima was a story of growth, not just physical growth, the reversal from child to adult, but growth of perspective, of relationships, of possibilities. It was a story that continued in every conversation between realms, every training session in Glorio's facility, every diplomatic meeting between Shin and Degesu. As the night deepened and quiet settled over both Earth and the demon realm, the story rested. Not ended, never truly ended, but paused, waiting for the next chapter, the next challenge, the next opportunity for beings to surprise themselves and each other with what they could achieve together. And in that pause, in that quiet moment between adventures, there was peace, earned peace, fought for peace, peace built on understanding and maintained through consistent effort. It was fragile, as peace always is, but it was real and it was worth protecting. The timeline was complete because it had brought everyone to this point. Where they went from here was up to them. The adventure had taught them they were capable of more than they had imagined. Now they had the rest of time to explore what that meant, to build on what they had learned, to create futures worthy of the struggles that had brought them this far. In the end, that was what mattered. Not the battles won or lost, not the transformations or power levels, not even the dramatic moments that would be retold for generations. What mattered was the connections, the growth, the willingness to keep trying, keep adapting, keep reaching towards something better. The Dragon Ball Daima timeline was complete, and it was beautiful. Thanks for drifting through these Dragon Ball stories with me tonight. If you're ready for more, there's another calm video waiting just to the left. Let it guide you deeper into rest. You might fall asleep to something new.